Hey guys, welcome to Inspired Healthy Living with Purva. My name is Priya. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian that will be your host for today. A part of Diet Yum's vision, we've created a platform to help understand and go beyond nutrition by calling out health experts within their field. The area of mental health disorder is huge, and one of the areas that we'll be talking about is the stress and anxiety that is characterized by feeling of worry, severe anxiousness, or fear that are strong enough to interfere in one's daily activities. Anxiety is one of the most common mental health conditions in Australia. On average, 1 in 4 people, 1 in 3 women, and 1 in 5 men will experience anxiety at some stage in their life. In a 12-month period, over 2 million Australians experience anxiety. To talk more about this topic and discuss some ways that you can take care of your mental health, we have invited Linh Ngo-Nguyen with us today. Linh is a friendly and passionate psychologist who has been working in private practice with life resolutions. She is dedicated in creating a collaborative and engaging environment in which clients can feel comfortable and free to explore to enrich their lives. She has an interest in helping clients get in touch with what is meaningful to them and using core values to help guide, motivate, and inspire behavioral change. Please welcome Linh. Linh. All right, thank you, Linh, for joining us today. Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Priya, for having me. So I've been a senior psychologist with Life Resolutions for about close to 3 years now. I work with a wide range of clients, and it's been really good. Yeah, working in private practice.
Great. And how have you been in this current, the pandemic? I mean, it's not really an easy time at the moment.
Oh, well, yeah, see, I've found a bit of a weird balance between, a lot of clients have actually had a lot of anxiety and fears triggered, especially with the restrictions and the uncertainty of everything that's going on. But there's also a subset of clients who are also loving being at home and the slow pace of things as well. And kind of feeling a little bit more settled because everybody's kind of finally understanding the anxiety that they've felt their whole lives. So finding a different balance, yeah.
Right. So I guess we'll kind of delve right into the questions. So the first one we had is, as a psychologist, what is the most rewarding thing in your profession?
So I think, some of the most intimate conversations of some people's whole lives take place in this space, and it's so rewarding to be able to see your clients grow and change into the people that you always knew that they were, and that whole experience is what makes it so incredible and fulfilling. I don't just show up to work and punch a few numbers in. It's, you're actually interacting and able to help people, and it's never the same thing each day. So.
Oh, beautiful. And I saw on your website that your latest blog about shyness and self-anxiety. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, shyness and social anxiety, they share a lot of the same characteristics. They both have, somatic symptoms, including trembling, sweating, blushing, cognitive symptoms. So, for example, fear of negative evaluation, thinking that you're an idiot or that, you're doing something stupid, and also avoidance of social situations as well. But while shyness is a normal facet of personality, social anxiety disorder is more, more serious and has more of an impact. So I guess in general, the three things that distinguish shyness from social anxiety is the intensity of the fear, the level of avoidance, and also the impairment of functioning that it can cause in a person's life.
Wow. And it's so good to understand the difference between that, because these are the three most common things that you do actually see in a lot of your clients. And it's really important to sort of distinguish that too. That's absolutely great.
Yeah.
What is your real self?
Well, that I guess that can vary according to who you ask. And one of the cliches that often gets thrown around a lot is just be yourself or be true to yourself. But, what does that actually mean? I think one way to look at it might be, behaving in line with your own unique set of values or what you see to be important, even if these conflict with social conventions or other external influences. As an example, choosing to wear brightly coloured clothing if the rest of your group are more black and white, and I guess from a psychological science standpoint, a person might be considered authentic if, for example, they have a lot of self-knowledge and self-awareness, or they're motivated to learn about themselves. And I guess in a nutshell, your real self might be discovered by identifying what's important to you. For example, finding out what you like to do when no one else is around.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very common thing that people say, isn't it? Just be yourself, just be yourself. And you're just kind of thinking,
that's right. What does that even mean?
So it's always really important to spend that time and absolutely understanding, what is it about yourself but what it means. Great. And what is social anxiety?
So I guess we kind of touched on it a little bit, but to delve a little bit deeper, it's a really, I guess, perpetual fear of being judged, of being embarrassed or humiliated, and avoiding social situations that will trigger that anxiety, or you go to them but you're enduring it with a great deal of anxiety. And you also might have the excessive anxiety that's out of proportion to the actual situation as well. One of the main aspects of social anxiety is the extreme fear of being judged. So someone with social anxiety might be really, really constantly afraid of the way they look, the way that they act, what others are thinking of them. And it can really, really get in the way of their daily functioning and their relationships as well. And I mean, while some of these fears can be quite normal, for someone with social anxiety, it's absolutely debilitating, and the anxiety can often be irrational and unwarranted as well. So you might spend a lot of time obsessing about your social interactions. Did I do the right thing? What did they mean when they said that? Their body language was a little bit off, and you spend a lot of time kind of ruminating about that. And you also get a lot of those physical sensations too. Someone might get really nauseous, they might shake a little bit, and just feel really self-conscious.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that we see quite often in our clients as well. I think particularly eating disorder is quite a very big part of it too. So definitely. Yeah. What would you say is the opposite of the social anxiety?
I guess I don't know whether the opposite of social anxiety might be the complete absence of all the fears and embarrassment or humiliation. I mean, there might be some people who come close to not ever experiencing any of these worries at all, but I've yet to personally meet them, I think in my opinion, the opposite of social anxiety is actually more of a surrendering to an acceptance of the fears that might come with these social situations. So when we can actually drop the struggle with these difficult experiences, we actually create space to be able to engage in the social interactions and forming meaningful relationships that we may have otherwise avoided.
Yeah. Okay, great. What's the goal of therapy to treat social anxiety, and why is it important to treat?
Okay, so I guess firstly, it's important to treat social anxiety because in most cases, the fear can be really debilitating, and without treatment, it could continue and get worse. And this means that really negative impacts on a person's life, including their work, relationships, study, daily functioning, so it can be quite serious. I guess the goal of therapy also can depend on which interventions you use to treat social anxiety. So a couple of the main approaches that we usually use is cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, or acceptance and commitment therapy, which is ACT. So in the case of CBT, the goal might be to provide techniques and strategies to help clients learn how to change the way that they think and behave in a social situation that might really scare them. Whereas with ACT, it's quite similar, but it's more about helping the person learn how to experience difficult thoughts and feelings in a non-defensive way. So basically changing the relationship of the person with their thoughts so that they can do what's important to them. For example, making new friends or maintaining relationships or public speaking, for example.
Okay, great. How to cultivate self-love and why is it important?
Okay, so the why is it important piece of it, there's been a lot of research to consistently show that there's a positive correlation between self-compassion or self-love and positive mental well-being. So, and in terms of how to cultivate it, it's like learning any new skill. It takes a lot of practice, because for a lot of us, self-compassion doesn't come very naturally, and we don't even realize how mean or nasty we can be to ourselves. A lot of us spend so much time focusing on our flaws and our weaknesses, and we have that nasty inner critic that's always there giving us a distorted version of how we really are. And so cultivating self-love or self-compassion involves really radically changing the way that we relate to ourselves. And for some of us, that can be harder for others. For example, if we've had a background of being bullied or had a really critical parent, it can be really, really hard to change the way we talk to ourselves. But with practice, that can definitely occur. And we can do things like practicing mindfulness-based skills, which helps us to be present and just looking at the way that we're talking to ourselves. And we can't expect to change it overnight, but with more practice, it becomes more natural and easier, and it has positive impacts on our mental health as well.
Absolutely. And I think like that is something that we teach to our clients as well. The fact is that just keep trying, don't give up. Even if they can take away one key message or so, it's really to help keep trying. That's really a very
persevering. Yeah.
How to live a real life.
So I guess this kind of ties into your question about, what is your real self? So kind of going from there, I guess living a real life might be about exploring what our values are, what we feel to be important, and living our life according to those values. And it can be hard to know what's important to you. We have so many of other people's expectations about what's important to them. So, but part of that can also be learning how to uncover and work with our own feelings. That can help us live a more real or authentic life, because it means that we get to gain access to a rich new understanding of how we tick, how to take care of ourselves in a way that best supports us living in a life that's full and meaningful, and also hopefully minimizing the impacts of stress and anxiety as well. So the exploration of values, I think, is a really important piece of that. And values are not the same as outcome goals that you can just tick off once. For example, buying a car or buying a house, which you can tick off, and they can be important goals. But values are things like, how do you want to be as a person or a family member or a partner? A value can be something like being loving and supportive, and you don't just tick that off once. Yeah. It's something that you sort of live by day after day. So I think some questions to be able to explore what your values are might be, what do I love unconditionally? What do I enjoy when no one else is watching? If there was not such a thing as fear or failure, what would my life look like? And the answers to these questions might provide us with a way to find out how we can get to be in, more deeper, more fulfilling relationships with ourselves and with other people as well, and show up to our lives in that way.
Oh, wow. Great. And what do you think the main reason is for clients who don't, or you can say who lack in self-compassion and self-love?
I think There can be, a variety of reasons for that. It could depend on your upbringing, what kind of childhood you've had, what kind of young experiences, but also, whether you've been taught to practice that, or, whether that's been a value in the family or in your peer group. So if you've not been exposed to that, then that's not something that you would really think about. Um, and so I think, some of these questions can be really, really hard, but they're really worth it too.
Yeah, of course. It's really, I guess, kind of getting really to the core part of it, like what's the main reason. And I think the more digging you can do, the more that you'll find a variety of answers, I guess. So that's always interesting. And I guess the last question is, what are some techniques you teach around self-compassion and self-love?
I think one of my favorite things to do around self-compassion is just really identifying, when you can notice that inner critic come up and really just calling it out, giving it a name, for example. For example, you can name it Sally or Penny or whatever, and every time it comes up or every time you notice there's a negative thought or a judgment about what you're doing and how you're feeling, calling it out, because awareness is basically the first step to doing something about it. And it's not necessarily that you need to be in a battle with your inner critic. It's more, hey, you know what? This is a really unhelpful friend who's trying to help me, but it's not helpful for me in this moment. So I'm just going to call it out, and I'm going to shift my attention to whatever's in the present moment, which is, around different ways to practice mindfulness and contacting the present moment, which I find, to be really helpful in cultivating self-compassion.
Right. I guess just kind of thinking about it, just I had another question. How many sessions do you recommend for your clients?
That is a difficult question, because it really depends on the presenting issue, the intensity of what they're presenting with, but also what their goals are as well. So I mean, if a client comes, under Medicare, for example, they get 10 sessions in a calendar year. I think it's a little bit more now with the pandemic. But, I would say 6 or more sessions, sometimes 6 is enough to be able to work on some of those really basic skills, but it really depends on the type of client.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for your time, Maylin. It was lovely having you here and having to hear it into your profession. I guess, guys, well, this is the end of our session. Keep in tune. We'll have some more videos and podcasts coming through. And that's it for today. All right. Thanks, guys.